Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our live update. And we are coming to you today right after the long weekend and right after our win yesterday. Yes, that's exciting, but I'm still cautiously excited because you never know with the Edmonton Oilers. And here's hoping that we can actually beat the Dallas Stars this week, this time. So I wanted to talk to you today about what's happening in the market. And I made a comment that the market is starting to change. And it sure is. The market stats are showing that the market is indeed shifting. And my feeling is being backed up now by the numbers. And it's also being backed up because I've been seeing, if you've been tuning in for the last, I'd say 2 months, a month and a half, the numbers of listings have been increasing. So more choices, not a huge bunch every week, but over a cumulative time, it is making a difference. And guess what? The solds are now also making a difference. So let's start and talk about the current listings on the market. Like I mentioned before, the listings continue to rise every single week. We're now sitting at 2147. And if you remember, just a few months ago, we were under 2,000 listings. Like we were like at 1,800. So we have increased over the last month and a half, which again is normal because it's April, May. This is usually when people do put their homes on the market. So it's not like, oh, why did the numbers go up? That's why. And it's the time that people sell. And if you are thinking about selling your home, you probably were also thinking, should I be putting my house up for sale in the spring as well? We have had a cooler start to the spring. However, we haven't had a ton of snow. And so don't forget too, we had a quick start of the year. January, February, March was a lot busier than our normal January, February, March. And I've seen this before 2 years ago when it was crazy January, February, March, April. It started to auto-correct itself in June. Actually, probably started doing it in May, which is exactly what is happening right now. Now, tune in for one more second. I'm going to talk to you about what this means when we look at the pendings and sold. I can't predict things, but it definitely is becoming true of what I thought was going to happen. So if you take a look at the other areas that are currently, the listings that are currently on the market, you can see that they're not a huge change. Now, why is that? Why is St. Alberta 157 versus 159, Sherwood Park 113 over 102, Spruce Grove 154 over 146, and Beaumont 85 over 74? Well, for one, the areas are smaller. So of course, they're not going to go up by an atrocious amount. And that's the biggest reason. It's a much smaller pocket compared to Edmonton, right? Because Edmonton has a lot more people. So that's why it doesn't make a huge difference. But when you take a look at the city of Edmonton, that is very telling. Now let's take a look at the pending sales that we had this last 7 days. In the last 7 days, Edmonton's sales actually dropped. So you can see that it dropped by almost 40 units in 1 week. And that is exactly what I was thinking is it's starting to affect the market. So what happens is when demand starts to drop and sales start to go up, the market is starting to shift. Now, it's still very much a seller's market, so don't get me wrong there, but it's starting to move. And if you keep having high demand and low inventory, so not enough listings and a lot of people wanting to buy, it pushes it and continues to carry it into the seller's market. It doesn't let up. It keeps going, keeps driving prices up because there's multiple offers, high demand. But then as the market is starting to go like this, that's what's happening right now. The listings inventory is coming up and the buyer demand is coming down. It's starting to balance itself out. Now, what does that mean for you as a seller? Please, please, please listen to the market. I know you've been hearing all your friends getting all these crazy prices and multiple offers and selling 20K, 40K over list price and blah, blah, blah. Now, don't forget, sometimes houses are priced lower than they should be and they end up selling for much higher than they think they would have been, right? But if the market price was here and is priced down here and it sells for like right here, it's different than market price here and selling way up here. So you have to keep that in mind when you see all these advertisings of, oh, it sold for 50K, 100K over list price. Was list price market value to begin with? So now I go back to this conversation I'm having with you as sellers. Please, please, please take a look at the market. When the market starts to shift like this, you do not want to price over market value. Even pricing at market value is a bit of a risk. You can actually never underprice your home. I have said this to my clients so many times, but I think people don't believe me and they're scared and they think, Melody, you're leaving money on the table, and I am not. You are leaving money on the table when you put the house price too high, because when the demand starts to drop and there's not as much urgency to buy a property, everything starts to change. The pickiness of buyers starts to increase when the demand goes down. What do I mean by that? Well, I remember a couple of years ago, we had a listing that had really, really, really damaged flooring. And in a normal balanced or buyer's market, that flooring would have been a problem. That flooring would have been discounted on the price of the home because of the fact that it was not in a condition that someone would want it. And so they'd want to have a lower price. But guess what? In this high, crazy market, that house not only sold quickly, it sold for way above list price. Now, that's what happens when there's nothing on the market and a whole lot of demand. But when things start to change, things like the condition of the home, they always affect the property, but they're going to affect it even more. The location of your home. Are you fronting a main road? Are you backing a main road? Are you in a desirable lot? Is your lot large? Is your lot small? Are you a zero lot line? All these factors are now going to start playing an effect on if a buyer wants to jump on the home. They're also really going to be cautious of the price. Sure, there's nothing to look at as much, but they're not going to pay that much over. So you have to be careful. Now, as buyers, you can see this. You don't have to make a decision as quickly. However, if you want to buy that property, you still need to give proper value. So it got listed a day ago, 2 days ago, and that seller put it too high. Does it mean you can lowball? Well, you could try, but you have to understand buyers. You need to understand the psychology of the sellers. Now, I know that the market has nothing to do with the sellers, does it? In theory, the market has to do with both buyers and sellers willing to come to an agreement. And if they don't come to an agreement, you're not going to get a deal done. So it doesn't matter that the market value is here, sellers are valuing it here, and the buyers value it here. How is the market going to be determined? It's by the buyers and seller actually agreeing on the price. So the seller might think it's worth this much, the buyer might think it's worth this much, but if they can't come to terms, then you got nothing, right? So let's take a look at the sold in the last 7 days. I kind of went on this big tangent because the market's changing. Look at this. This has dropped a lot. That's almost 100 deals down sold in the last 7 days. If that is not an alert for you in 1 week, 7 days, that is a big change, okay? So I'm just reporting you statistics. I am not making this number up. This is just based on our Paragon MLS, what's happened in the last 7 days in Edmonton. So from the May 14th to May 21st, that's what's going on. Now, if you take a look at the other areas, that's a big difference. And if you take a look at the difference between last year, let me just hold on. I want to just double check this number. I'm pretty confident that we have the correct numbers, but I'm just double checking because it is crazy. Yeah, it's the same. It's right. So 166. Now, let's take a look at last year. Last year at this time, the market was a lot hotter. If you take a look, it was at 312. That's double, right, than what we are currently for this week. Now, St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, they're pretty similar. A little bit higher in Spruce Grove this year, which doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of new builds happening, which have actually been listed on MLS. So I'm not surprised to see that number be higher. Those areas in the first, when you come from Edmonton into Spruce, that whole brand new area is really, really growing in the last year. So that doesn't surprise me with those numbers at all. So what does this mean? If you are a buyer, what does this mean? Does this mean that you can't buy a house anymore and you can't get a deal? No. Buyers, actually, you're not getting a ton of choices. You know that. But you are getting an opportunity to make an offer without it being too crazy. Disclaimer, if it's brand new in the market and you're putting an offer in multiples in the first 3 days, you may still not get the opportunity, but you're probably going to start seeing more houses sit on the market. That's what I'm seeing. As a seller, you want to be really careful that you don't become one of those listings that sit on the market. And if you take a look at the overall market in general, it's okay. So it's the end of May. Market starts to shift, like I said, and it is shifting. It's coming to be summer. I know it doesn't feel like it, but as people start thinking about June, July, August, they are starting to think, oh, I don't want to move or buy a house right now. I want to go on holidays. I want to go camping. I want to watch the hockey game, all those types of things, right? So you have to understand that if you are putting your house on the market, this is like, I would say the last week, this next week or so is critical. And I have a feeling the market will change. Now, do houses sell all year round? Of course they do. Your odds of selling are still going to be there, but your odds of selling are going to be lower if you increase too much on the price, okay? It's not going to work. Now, if you think, well, maybe I'll just wait till next spring. Yeah, you could wait till next spring. Can you wait till next spring? Is your house going to be empty? Are you going to be paying bills every single month? Because if you are and you're waiting for next year, I'm not confident to know that you're going to get that much more next spring. Because keep in mind, we had a pretty big increase. There was a prediction that the prices would increase by, I think 10-15% was the highest. We did see quite a huge increase from November until now on the average price. But I saw this 2 years ago where when the market started to correct itself, the pricing started to drop. And then the overall increase when you added the last half of the year to the first half of the year was no longer that high percentage. And so normally Edmonton's a 1% to 2%. This year with a stronger market, I don't think it's going to be 10 at the end of the day. I think it might be at 5 because I think it's going to autocorrect itself. And I might be wrong, and maybe that's a good thing. But that's just based on what I've seen on the numbers and how they've changed. And I know people watching from Ontario and BC are like, that doesn't make sense. Our market never goes down and corrects itself. Well, what comes up always comes down. In Edmonton has always been like that. It's always been a very conservative market, and that's why Edmonton has always been affordable. So maybe I'm wrong, because look at Calgary. It just continued to climb up. But I know Calgary has also, obviously, they have very low inventory as well too, but their market was starting to shift. So if you have any questions about that, I have a shorter update today just because we're heading to a conference with other realtors and a lot of them actually from Calgary. So if you have questions for Calgary realtors, please comment below and I will make sure to ask them and report back to you next week because we have a few days in a conference for our brokerage and I'm looking forward to being in the mountains to talk and learn all about what they're seeing and what we're seeing. Have a good day, guys.